Hello, everyone. I'm a little under the weather right now. You're not going to start without me telling you. I'm a little under the weather. I opened up my window and got some air in, and it always happens this time of year with them doing the fields, cutting down the corn and soybeans and stuff. It always gets my allergies bad, and I just got a little head cold because of it. But it started Friday. Last night I couldn't sleep at all. I just sat there trying to breathe. My sinuses were just like... It's breaking a little bit now. I can breathe, so that's a good thing. I can breathe out of this one, not this one. I just hurt my eyes. All right. So I'm going to be drinking some tea. This was a gift given to me by somebody, Pat, from work, because I always give him stuff. And he gave me this really nice cup, and he gave it to me 2 months ago in a bag, and I just realized that there was a bag inside the bag. So it's got its own little spoon. It's very fancy. So I'm drinking some tea, and you're going to watch me drinking it. That is what it is. What? And I'm going to mute the mic and disappear so I can sneeze and blow my nose. So, sorry. Bird. Windows open. Sorry. So this is requested by Haneen. I nailed the name. I'm just so good at it. And this is The Purpose of Life by Jeffrey Lang. And this is Islam on Demand. Oh, well, it's right in front of me. Oh, I can see, but sometimes I'm stupid. All right, let's get. We're going to break this down into 6 15-minute videos. Sorry. Let's do it. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ames, Iowa. I know where that is.
I've come from the University of Kansas. We're playing in the Final Four this very instant. So I want to let you know that you've asked a lot of me today. No, I'm just joking. All right, very briefly, I just want to talk a little bit about what the Quran has to say about the purpose of life. I think this is an extremely important subject, especially for Muslims living in America, because we're sort of a minority, a new religion here, and many people are interested in what we believe. And I think the primary question that people want answered when they first consider another religion is how that religion views the purpose of life, the purpose of of our existence here. And so I'm going to begin, though, talking about an atheist point of view, because I want to talk about what sort of answers the Quran might have for an atheist. So to begin this, I need to talk for about 5 or 10 minutes about, what I believe contributed to my becoming an atheist, because I grew up in a Christian family. And then I'll talk for about 45 minutes or so about what I experienced in the Quran and how that sort of changed my perception. So it's very simple.
So he grew up in a Christian household, then became atheist, then became Muslim. Man's experienced everything, hasn't he?
Well, but my wife always says I should summarize what I'm going to do before I talk, because it's easy to get lost in my speeches, and my wife doesn't have a lot of confidence in my speaking ability. Okay, so let me start out by mentioning that my mother certainly played no role in my becoming an atheist. My mother was a wonderful woman, a beautiful lady, She had tremendous dignity and class. The neighbors loved her. She was a registered nurse, and she put in many extra hours at the hospital. She worked in the ward that dealt with dying patients. And when I would come and pick her up late from work at night, all the patients would, not all the patients, but many of the patients would drag me over and talk to me and tell me what a wonderful woman my mother was. When she died, her funeral was packed, and person after person that came up to me had a story to tell about my mother and her goodness. Time and time again, people described her as, Jeff, you know, your mother is a true saint. She was a deeply religious woman, a great mother, a great teacher, a gentle person. She never cursed. I never heard her curse, swore ever in her whole life. Never heard her speak to anybody rudely or speak about anyone rudely. She was a tremendous example of a truly religious person, and she didn't wear it on her.
What he's describing. I'm listening. And I'm picturing we called her Nana, my grandma, but we called her Nana. I had a grandma, my dad's mom was my grandma, and my mom's mom was Nana. And he's describing my Nana in a way. And how, just how everyone loved her. She was religious, went to church. I don't know, my grandpa was, but I don't know if he went to church with her all the time. He probably looked at it like, you go to church for both of us and I'll stay home and watch the baseball games. That was kind of like, that was his church. But I remember going over to their house and like getting dropped off to stay over there for the weekend because my parents were going out of town or something. And I remember her waking up on a Sunday and saying we had to hurry up and eat breakfast so we could go to church. And I was like, I don't want to go to church. And this is a time I grew up having to go, but I just became so much of a nuisance and a problem that my mom just stopped bringing me. And I was too young to really care. You're just sitting there, and I'm just like, I just wanted to play. You know what I mean? I was a kid. And I knew so many people that didn't have to go. I was jealous of them. My dad didn't go. So when I would go over to I had gotten out of that. I'd go over to my Nana's house, and she would make pancakes and breakfast for me. And I would eat, and I was like, I don't want to go to church. And I remember she never forced me, which you would think she's a grandmother. She's just going to be like, you're going to go to church. And you'd say no, and she'd go, I don't want to ask you again. And you'd be like, yeah, I wanted to. I'm going to meet you at the car. I'm going to beat you at the car, to the car. That's how you say English words. She never did. She would just be like, okay. And then she'd do breakfast and everything like that. And then she'd go, I'm going to run an errand. And, like, say 10 o'clock. She was like, I'm going to run an errand. Well, she would catch the second service or, whatever it was. And she would just dip out and go and then come back. And there was an appreciation of that where it was never forced on you. But yeah, he's talking about I never heard my Nana say anything. The most negative thing she ever said was, "Oh, that bloody person." She was British, so that bloody person. That was whew, shots fired. That's what that was.
Sleeve. It was just slowly but surely you could see it just in her day-to-day interactions with people. My father, on the other hand, was a difficult man. My father, for some strange reason, had this tremendous rage inside him. I don't know where he got it. He had this terrible violence inside him. And every night he would try to quell that violence with hard drinking. Mm-hmm. And his drinking, though, only made him all the more volatile. Mm-hmm. Because my father could be laughing and joking one minute, and he could fly into an angry rampage the next for some unexpected reason. You never know what would trigger it. And once he flew into that angry rampage, it would take, he would just go wild in the house. The house would be in havoc. And he would rage on and on and on, and it would take an awful lot of liquor and several hours before he would finally go to sleep.
I never had that issue. My mom never drank. My dad did drink, still does. Never. He would be a very mellowed out. If he was angry, that mellowed him out. I drink. I can't get mad when I drink. When I drink, this is what happens to me. I'll be like this. Man, it's been a bad day. I just want to drink. Get a drink in me, and I'm like this. Get a couple drinks in me. Some of you have seen it in some of my earlier videos when I would drink. There was one video I started out, I did like 3 shots and then started doing one of the Muslim expansion videos. I was having a great time. I don't get angry when I would drink. No, I was having a blast. Life was great. Things were happening. I was laughing at things for no reason. I was a happy alcoholic. I don't drink that much. I haven't drank in quite a while now, actually. I go through spurts, but yeah. Where was I going to? Oh, for anyone, 40th President Ronald Reagan. Growing up, his dad was such a drunk. This is a side note. This is just some information. His dad was such a drunk that he became embarrassed of him, because he would come home and his dad would be drunk sleeping in the yard, passed out. He'd get fired from jobs all the time. It was a terrible life when you're Ronald Reagan, and he had an older brother, I think a year or two older, and they would have to witness their dad being this. He wasn't abusive. He was just a drunk. I shouldn't say he wasn't abusive. I don't remember if he was abusive, but he was just a drunk. And that's humiliating, especially back in those days. You're talking 20s? Because alcoholism wasn't really looked at as a problem, like a disease kind of thing. My voice just cracked. But one day his mother gave him a book to read. His mother was a saint about it. She'd come home, see him passed out in the yard. She'd help him get up, get him inside so he could lay down. Then she'd go about doing housework and cooking and stuff like that. And he never understood why she seems to allow this. And then she gave him a book, and I wish I could remember the book. But he read this book, and it's basically about this guy who has a really bad alcohol dependency. And his whole life falls apart around him. But he's able to get through it and stop drinking. And it's kind of, it was kind of a thing to help people. Like, you can do this. You can get past it. I don't know if it was based off anyone. It was just a story. And his dad eventually got cleaned up. But Reagan got to the point where he read this book, and he no longer felt humiliated or upset with his father. He was sad because he was suffering. And he didn't know how to help his dad. And why would his dad listen to him? He's a kid. He's his son. He's not going to listen to him. And so he went about treating him like his mom did. You help him up. You encourage him. But you don't make him feel humiliated. Because if you do, he's going to throw himself back into liquor. It was a really interesting story. I went and visited his home. It was an interesting story. But his dad eventually got cleaned up and lived long enough to, I believe, his mom, I know for sure. Did his mom see his presidency? I think both of them did, maybe. I could be wrong. Anyways, sorry. That was a tangent out of nowhere.
And this would happen night after night after night. And so my four brothers and I was the fourth in line. My four brothers and I lived a frightening and precarious childhood. But I'd have to say the worst of it was watching my father regularly taunt and threaten and abuse my mother. And it would happen day in, day in, day in, day out, night in, night out. And it was a never-ending nightmare. You see, it's really not so bad when you're the target of your father's violence. You might think it's bad when a child is the target of their father's violence, but it's really not all that bad. At the moment of attack, you're really not thinking about anything except your own survival. Mm-hmm. When he's firing punches at you or kicking you on the ground or chasing you throughout the house, or when he's threatening you, I'm going to hurt you, bad boy, you're not thinking about anything at that moment except escape. While all that's going on, you're not thinking...
I've been through similar situations. Yeah. And you don't know. I mean, for him, it was the alcohol, but you don't know what the cause of it is. And one day you get big enough where you're done. You're done with it. You're not taking it anymore. And that's what happened with me. And there was never an incident after that. And it destroyed the family for a while. But the anger wasn't at the person who it should have been. It was at me. Because I stood up to it. And I just said, if you don't stand up to it, it'll continue. And it'll get worse. There's nothing like you coming home from school, having your book bag on your around your arm, and then just having someone rip it out of your hand and unzip your bag and throw your stuff all over the floor, and then just verbally lay into, just assault you verbally, and then you're ignoring them and you're mad and they know it, and so they start to push, eventually kick, and eventually the pushing turns to slapping, and eventually slapping turns to fists, and they know they have a power over you. And what they always forget is that never goes away in your mind. And you hit that stop sign where you're like, we're not going beyond this point. And you put them in a situation where you realize that you could end their life, and you wouldn't care, and you would deal with the consequences because you know that the history of it shows that you kind of snapped. There's that way to handle it, which is the way I did. But I can't say necessarily it's the right way to handle it. But I mean, I'm 6'1", about 225 pounds. I used to play football and stuff like that, so I got big for the sport. Don't need the weight anymore, but yeah, you find a purpose. I was looking at purpose when I said it, but you find your escape, and that's where you kind of go to, even if it's in the back of your mind. It's just, you just get away, you just clear your mind until eventually that person invades it. And I don't know how other people do it, but when that happens, I got to start checking things. So yeah, I kind of know what he's talking about, because I would have rather had it come at me than my sisters or my mom. But it came at everyone. I'm getting a little angry, so I'm
thinking about the aftermath or consequences, the psychological repercussions or anything like that. And when it's all over, you might even excuse the onslaught because you figure maybe you somehow deserved it. Mm-hmm. If not for what you did this time, maybe for something you did in the past. Mm-hmm. You could always put the blame on yourself. Mm-hmm. But a far worse fear is the terror that overcomes you when you watch your father go after your mother. Because she's the only source of warmth and kindness, of love and protection that you know. And if he were to take that away, from a little boy's standpoint, then you lost everything. But far worse than the fear is the guilt. And it comes over you from several directions. First of all, there's the guilt that comes at you upon you from the growing antipathy you have towards your father. Because we're taught to love and respect our parents, and we are born with this natural bonding attachment to them. But when you watch something like this happen night after night after night, and this rage is growing inside you, you're being pulled in opposite directions. Then there's also, of course, the guilt that comes when you think that you might be the cause of this night's violence. Maybe something you said or did that you didn't even realize triggered it. Maybe just your father's dislike of you.
So my last incident, I'd come home. I had asked my sister for help on homework. She could not help me that night. It was a Friday. She couldn't help me. I was like, okay. She said, but I'll be back Sunday, and I can help you then. I said, okay. So in the meantime, I ended up left here, went to my aunt's house, stay with my cousins. Same cousins from the last video where I talked about the clowns. It was that cousin at that fort. He was the middle brother. I was going to hang out with the younger brother. Oh, hang out with both of them, really. It didn't matter. And I came back Sunday at like 5 p.m. My sister was coming back at like 6. So I came home and I was asked, did you do your homework before you left? And I said, no, I was asking my sister for help. But she wasn't going to be here. She was working, so she wouldn't be here till Sunday. So she was going to help me then. And my mom was like, okay. Well, he didn't care for that. But he waited 15 minutes. He was just sitting downstairs fuming, not saying a word to anyone. And he came upstairs, and I had my back to him. He didn't say anything to me, and it was a smack to the back of the head. And I turned around, and I'm looking at him, and then it was a backhand by the face, and then it was another one, and I fell backwards on my bed, and he was coming in at me, and I just got him in the stomach. And then I was laying there in this kind of defensive, like I was going to start kicking, and he's like, oh, you're a big man, huh? So I crawled off the bed, and I stood up, and that's when he realized I was bigger than he was. And I caught this looking me up and down, And I knew I had him. And he had crossed that line, and that was the moment. And so he said, you think you're a big man now? I hopped up, looked at him, and I said, yep. And he was just getting ready to, I don't even know what he was going to say, and I just cut him off and said, are we going to do this or not? And the look in his face was like that's not in the script. He says something, and then I try to calm it all down, and he went to say something again, and I just yelled in his face. I just called him a mother. And are we going to do this or not, you big bitch? And I was just ready. And he put his hand up to kind of poke me in the chest. And I smacked his hand away. And I just, right in the chest. I mean, right in the sternum. And it took him back. And my mom came running in. And he came at me. And as Dave Chappelle said, I had to go to work. And he got about 4 or 5 good shots and dropped him. And I just stood over him. My mom was kind of trying to keep me away from him, and I just stood over him, and I was like, who's the bitch now? Who's the bitch now? Say it. You came in to start something, and I just finished it, so who's the bitch now? And he wouldn't say anything, and he tried to get up again, and I was like, I'll hit you again. I started doing this, and I started throwing that. And he kind of fell down, and he just did this. And I was like, that's what I thought. And I left. Walked out. Ended up leaving the house. Left the house for a year. Moved out. And it was... Looking back, it's one of those things where I've always wondered why. Because there was no reason for it. There was no explanation. It was just, if he decided he wanted to fly off the handle and you were there, you were going to be the one. But after that moment, he turned his attention away from me because I was the youngest. But now I became the biggest. So his attention went to my, not the oldest sister. That's like, it's his love. The other one. And so every time he would start in on her, never hitting her, just physically, verbal attacking her, I would just get right in his face. And I was like, hey, that's fine. You want to do this with her, you're going to do this with me. You can talk all you want to her, but I'll be the one who beats you down. So you better choose your words wisely. And once I started throwing that around, things stopped. And it was just this... And I'm sure he knows exactly what it is. It's this fog of, when you go home, it is a fog of unhappiness and anger. Not in you, but you're walking into it. You just get hit with it, and it's like, it was just like this vibe, this energy, and you felt it, and you were like, it's gonna be a bad day. I remember from my 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and freshman year, he'd work third shift, and so everybody would be gone, and I was the last one to leave for school. And first words out of his mouth, he come walking in the door, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Oh look, it's the fucking clown again, you little worthless mother. I don't know why you're here. You should leave. Go out and get yourself killed." And just all this. And I'm like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I'm hearing this every day before I go to school. And teachers want to know why I'm acting up, why I'm getting lippy, why I'm talking back, why I'm angry. So what do? They call the house. They wake him up because he's working third. So now he's mad that they woke him up. Now he's mad that I'm doing something. It was just a cycle. And one of my teachers caught on to it. And she was like, I'm not going to call your house. I'll call your mom at work. And I was like, yeah, do that. That's fine. And then he found out that there had been calls every now and then. And that made him mad again. One time, I didn't mean to turn this about me. I really didn't. I apologize. I'll start. One time, I did not have good grades because of everything that was going on. And they thought I needed glasses, like, to help with read, because I was getting headaches and stuff like that. I was getting headaches because I was dealing with crap at home. Gave me some glasses. I had to go to the doctor, got glasses. And one of my teachers, his name was Mr. Moore. He was a science teacher. He said, Kris, if you don't apply yourself, no one will apply anything for you. All right. So for one semester, I tried in every class. He was my inspiration. I tried in every single class. That and the fact that, and this was a side note, Mr. Moore said I was doing better. And my mom said, well, I'll start giving you money for your grades. Like $10 for an A, $5 for a B, $1 for a C. You owe me $3 if you get a D, and you owe me $15 if you get an F. So the reward was more punishable than the good grades. So, made you stay up. I had like 4 A's, 3 B's, and a C. It's a great report card, for me. And you had to take your report card home, and your parents had to sign it. You had to bring it back, and it was sitting on the kitchen table. And my sister saw it, and they were like, "Yeah, good job." And it was like I was turning a corner. He saw it, took the report card, and then the next morning I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. And he had taken it with him. So when he got back, he knew that he had it. And he was like, I'm going to drive you up to school. And I was like, I'm going to walk. I didn't want to ride. And he pulled out the report card. And he was like, this is your report card. I said, yep. Man, it went physical right away. I ended up running out of the house with no report card. So I get to school, and the teacher wanted my report card, and I was like, it's at home. My dad wouldn't give it to me. So what do? They call home. And he goes, said he was sleeping. So, of course, that's one strike against me. Said he didn't have the report card. And then when I come home, I stop by my aunt's house, and I call my mom. And I told her what had happened. So she wasn't happy. I get home, and he was awake, and he just went to town on me. So I just left, went to my aunt's house, and I was like, well, if I'm going to get beat on for getting good grades, what's my incentive? If I get beat on for getting bad grades, what's the incentive? That's not a life that you want to, that's not a place you want to go home to. That's a place you want to bomb. So, you handle things not always the best. I turned to getting high a lot, underage drinking, selling drugs, running drugs. I didn't care. It was more fun knowing I was doing something where I could die than it was to put up with him. When my mom died in 2012, we had not been talking for about 10 years. And he wanted to end that. So we have communicated. Everything's been fine. He's 78. He's too old for that. But he still has that temper that flies off every now and then. Like, You could say, oh man, this is going on in my life, what should I do? And he could give you advice. And you'd say, I tried that, but this is what I got back. And then he flies off at you and you're the problem. And it's like, you offered me advice and I'm telling you, I've already tried this and I don't think that would work because, and he's just like, well, you're a punk ass bitch then. Go f yourself. And you're just like, how is that even remotely called for? I think that's kind of why my fear, why I never wanted to get married or have kids. I never wanted to be that. I never wanted to be that person to a kid. Dogs are easy. Tortoises are easier. Except for my one tortoise who, every time I feed her, she crawls over the food and just, I'll feed her and she'll start eating, and then she does this thing where she looks up and she sees me watching her, so she crawls over the food and takes a shit on it. It's like, I wasn't going to eat it anyways. I'm really not going to eat it now. There was no sharing between us. I've wasted a lot of time. Sorry, I turned this into a me video and I didn't mean to do that. But he's saying things that I can relate to. Minus the alcohol part. It was never needed alcohol to start the fire.
Triggered an argument between your mom and him that is now raging on downstairs. But the worst guilt of all, and it is by far the very worst, is knowing that you did nothing to stop your father from hurting your mother. Because while he raged on against your mother downstairs, you hid in your bed and you trembled underneath the covers. Maybe you whimpered and you cried and you put the pillow on your head. And thus, you traded personal respect for personal safety. And with each such incident, you come to realize with ever greater and greater clarity, you come to realize your own weakness, your own impotence, your own incompetence, your own worthlessness, your own cowardice.
Damn.
And the hate grows and festers inside you. Mm-hmm. Not only for the man that you call father, but for yourself as well. It is a terrible, terrible thing to make a young boy choose between his mother and himself. It is extremely unfair.
Oh, this hurts.
I noticed that tomorrow there's going to be a lecture about, tomorrow morning, a lecture about spousal abuse given by Dr. Haneen Rizwan. I hope you'll all attend it. I think it's a very important subject. When I was little, I used to daydream about life without my father. I just wanted the violence to go away.
Yep.
I wanted not to be afraid anymore. I felt like I was trapped in a bad dream and there was no way out. And so I prayed to God again and again and again to remove my father from our lives.
I wanted him
But
dead.
he was always there, and very soon I began to wonder if God really was. I could not fathom why God would subject my mom to such lifelong punishment. Could not imagine what great sin she must have committed, or that we, her children, must have committed to deserve my father. I didn't have the maturity to sort out such questions, but I had enough fear and anger to provoke them. I was too young to see the wisdom in allowing my mom, to suffer the violence and abuse of my father. I was too young to understand why God would let innocent children tremble night after night after night in their beds, fearing that they might not see their mother the next morning.
I never had that. Yeah, my eyes are a little misty. I never had that. My mom has 4 brothers. On the other side, there was my dad and my uncle, DT, who died. And then 3 aunts. And all of those husbands. And all of the brothers. And then some of my cousins. They would have been paying the house a visit. Hey, you put your hands on her, right? You put one hand on her. Well, there's 7, 8, 9, 10 of us, and we're all going to put 2 hands on you. and a foot. So he never crossed that line. He knew not to cross that line. He cheated on her, and he got kicked out of the house. And I shouldn't laugh at this. This is a great memory. He got kicked out of the house. I'll say it was like 7 to 10 days. It was the best 7 to 10 days of a childhood. Coming home, that fog of fear and anger is gone. Walk in the house, my sisters be like, "Hey!" It's like, "Oh, what's going on?" My mom come home from work and she's like, "All right, I'm gonna start cooking." So we'd all go and help her. I was really young. I didn't really do much. But we'd all. It was like we got tighter together. And I remember watching cartoons on a Saturday morning. My sisters came downstairs, and I had already had a bowl. I think it was like Nerd cereal. So I was laying on the floor, like eating cereal, watching cartoons. I think probably Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. It's a great one. And my sisters are on the couch, and I don't remember, they might have just been drinking orange juice or something. And my dad just walks in the house, grabs a bowl, walks into the living room, sits down, and tells them, "Go get me cereal." My sisters and me were all looking at each other, and then he goes, "Go get me some fucking cereal." So my sisters get up and they go walk in, and I'm just petrified. I'm just laying on the couch feeling like if I don't move, then am I really there? As I ate my cereal. I was like Drax. And what was that? Infinity War? I've mastered the art of saying so completely still that I become invisible. That was me. As I was eating cereal and just watching that. And all of a sudden, TV channel changed. Off cartoons. It was on to something else. And I was crushed. This is Saturday morning. I'm a kid. You get one day to watch cartoons. My sisters come in with some cereal and they hand it to him. And he's like, "If this is what I wanted, I would have fucking said it." He threw it across the room. "Get me something else." So they're like, "Well, what do you want?" He's like, "Pick something." Well, they did. All of a sudden, my mom comes walking down the stairs. She turns the corner. She looks at him. She goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm waiting for those worthless kids to get me some fucking cereal. Is there a problem with that?" And she goes, what kind of cereal do you want?" And he goes, "I don't know." So she stands in the kitchen. She moves my sisters over. I'm still on the floor. Petrified. So she's sticking a box out. She's like, "Do you want this?" He goes, "I can't read it." You don't really need to read the box. You can tell generally what the box of cereal is based on the art and design on the cover. You know what I mean? So she's holding out this. No. Holding out this. No. And he's saying, "I can't read it. Bring it to me." So she's walking it to him. He's taking it, looking at it, and just throwing it. So she picks it up, walks in. Eventually, she goes through all the cereal, but she does not pick out his cereal. I think it was like Cheerios. She doesn't pick it out. She goes through all of them. He goes, "There's one more." And she goes, "Don't see it." And he goes, "There's one more." And she goes, "Oh, okay." She takes it off the shelf, takes Cheerios, takes the bag out of there, opens up the bag, opens up the garbage, and dumps all of it right into the garbage can. And then throws the bag, throws the box, and she goes, "Nope, we don't have that cereal." And I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm looking over, and I see the whole thing, and I'm just, in my head, I'm like, that's so cold-blooded. My mom's a gangster. Like she doesn't mess around. And I still remember that. Oh, I love you, Mom. That was great. But I'm just like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And he goes, "Okay, bring me the cereal again." She brings all the cereal out to him, sets it down on the coffee table. He sets his bowl down, pours cereal in, and he goes, I need a spoon. She walks back, she gets a spoon. Oh, I'm sorry, she yelled for my sister to get a spoon. And he said, no, you get me a spoon. She goes, okay. She goes back, she gets a spoon, she comes back, she just tosses it at him. It like goes in the cereal bowl, tumbles out, you know. So he gets it, and he goes, where's my fucking milk? She goes, oh, I'm sorry. She goes back, she gets the milk. There's a gallon jug. She's walking over, she undoes the cap, she turns it and squeezes it, and milk just spurts out of it like a fountain all over him. And she goes, you like that milk? Huh? Maybe you can go get more at the grocery store, or go over to your worthless whore's house. Get the f*** out of my house, you piece of... And she starts hitting him with cereal boxes. It's cereal boxes. Okay, it's cardboard. He gets up and runs out of that house as though a demon just assaulted him. He's like, oh, oh, oh. He is gone. Greatest thing of my life. Again, I'm still standing there. She might have been one step over me and one step, you know, like stepped over me completely with one leg and the other leg. And I'm just like in between both legs, and I'm witnessing the whole thing, and I'm just like... And she just gets the remote, hands it down to me. She goes, turns the channel back to my cartoons, and gives me the remote. She goes, you can go back to watching cartoons. My sisters, once he was out of the house, they were cracking up. It was the greatest thing ever. The greatest thing ever. She did not mess around. She had zero cares in the world. Because as far as she was concerned, and she would tell me later on, if he were to yell at her, that's one thing. But when he did stuff to us, so he would get mad if we told. And it's like, well, you assaulted me for no reason. So I decided, if he gets mad if I tell her, then would he get mad if I told the cops? So I did. On that last incident, when I left, I went down to a friend's house, called my aunt. We went from there to Pizza Hut. Somebody said my mom was looking for me, so he left. And I was just like, just take me to the cop's house. So I went there. Cop showed up. My mom was just like, everything's fine right now, but I'll let you know. But honestly, everything will be fine. And the cop was like, okay, because I don't like what I'm hearing. And she goes, I promise you, he's going to be taking off. So the situation is going to be cleared. And he was like, okay. So long as, you know, it's your word, so if something happens, I'm coming back for you. And she was like, that's fair. But that was pretty much the last time. I have hogged all the time for this video. I am sorry. We'll get back into it.
I was too young to see how the mercy of God could even extend to my father with all his terrible failings. All I could see in my world was chaos and violence and fear. And so it became easy for me to question the existence of God. And I began to do that at a very early age.
When I was little, I dealt with it. I played American football. My dad was my coach. And people, all the other kids, they loved him. They loved him. And I was like, he's I can't take that. He's a great coach. He really was. Hold on. Be right back. Sorry. I couldn't find the button. Oh, I missed it. Sorry, you guys just got caught up in something. I got stuff going on here. So, okay, we're back to I forgot what I was saying.
I think I'll even say that the turmoil of the 60s and 70s, that's the age when I was a teenager, in the late 60s, early 70s, only reinforced my skepticism. When John and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated, or Martin Luther King was gunned down, when Vice President Agnew was kicked out of office and Richard Nixon soon after him, when the race riots erupted in city streets like mine, and gang fights erupted in our cities, many of those which I was involved in, when I saw the bizarre and senseless carnage of Vietnam, they all confirmed the lesson that was already ingrained in me and that my father had taught me so well, that the world is dominated by random, consuming, undiscriminating violence. And very soon I began to ask why. Why would God make it that way? Why wouldn't he just pop us into heaven from the first and spare us all this suffering? Why does he let little children in Vietnam get napalmed and run down the street naked on fire when they had done nothing to deserve it? Why does he let the race riots go on? Why does he let the leaders be assassinated? Why does he just let the violence go on and on and on for people who had nothing to do with it? It wasn't of their own making. Why didn't he just make us angels and pop us into heaven if he could make us angels, which I was always taught he could? Why did he make us so susceptible to sin? Why didn't he make us impervious to it, like he made the angels? Is this the best world he could create, I thought? Is this the most perfect world he could create for our existence, for our beginning? I just couldn't figure it. And all the explanations I received from priests and doctors and lawyers, from whoever, spoke to me or taught me, they just didn't make sense to me. In any case, so I became an atheist when I was 16, even though I was going to Catholic school at the time. Declared myself an atheist in one class. It was a confrontation between me and a priest. We were talking about God and the purpose of life. And I expressed...
I'm sure if you declare yourself an atheist in a Catholic school, that is not going to be well received.
My views, and he said, well, then you don't believe in God. I said, well, I guess I don't. And then through my junior and senior year of high school, I got an F in religion, even though I continued to do very well on the tests. In any case, when I was 28, to make a long story short, some friends of mine gave me a copy of the Quran. And one night I was sitting in Diamond Heights, my apartment in Diamond Heights in San Francisco. I was working that time at the University of San Francisco. I was 27, 28 at that time, I can't remember. And I ran out of stuff to read, and I took this gift that my friends gave me and I began to read it. And I came to the first verse. Well, I opened the Quran, read the first page, then the second, and then very quickly, in the second surah, about 37 verses into the Quran, I came upon the story of mankind. And I have to admit, I read through it very quickly. It was about 9, 10 verses long, story of the first man and woman. And I recognized some of the details. It was similar to what I had learned when I was a child, but I noticed that there was something wrong. It was apparent to me that whoever authored this Quran, of course I wasn't a Muslim at the time, so I didn't have any idea who that was, whoever authored this Quran clearly did not understand the real meaning of the story, because they had obviously gotten the details confused. They didn't even understand the whole purpose of the story. And so I just read through it once, and then I read through it again, just to try to see what kind of point the author was making, and then I read through it a third time and a fourth, and then I realized this is something strange going on here. I'm going to read this much more carefully. I'm going to need to go through this story line by line, verse by verse, because it's obvious that the author is trying to bring out another point. And I wasn't quite sure what it was, but definitely he packs a lot of meaning into almost every word. And I thought the writer at least seems to have a great measure of brilliance. And so I'll try to sort of take you through what my experience was as quickly as I can. So I came to the 30th verse of the second surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, and it began like this. It said, "Behold, your Lord said to the angels, I am going to place a vicegerent on earth. The Arabic word is khalifa. It means a representative or an emissary of mine. I am going to place a vicegerent on earth. And they said, the angels said.
Is that similar to the saying of like the caliph? Or is that the caliph? Is that the right? I don't know. Khalifa, caliph. No. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. We'll stick with no.
Said, will you place therein one who will spread corruption and shed blood, while we celebrate your praises and glorify your holiness? And God said, he said, truly I know what you do not know. See, that's the verse that hooked me. That's the verse that caught my attention. That's the one that kept on making me read the story again and again and again. Because listen to the way it begins. Behold, your Lord said to the angels, I am going to place a representative of mine on earth, a vicegerent of mine, an emissary, one who acts on my behalf. I thought, that's not the way it goes. You're not supposed to be placing man on the earth in some positive role, some elective office. You place man on earth as a punishment for his sin. Clearly, I knew the author didn't quite get the point. But still, it was an amazing line. But then I come to the next line, and it says, and the angels say, will you place therein one who will spread corruption and shed blood, while we celebrate your praises and glorify you? I looked at it again. I couldn't believe the question. They said, will you place therein one who will spread corruption and shed blood, while we, the angels, celebrate your praises and glorify you? I looked at that and I said, exactly. That would be my question. Why would you create this being, supposedly for some positive role, when he's capable of doing tremendous wrongdoing? When he could spread corruption and shed much blood?
It's been very long. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I apologize for all the rambling at the beginning. Yeah, that really caught me. So there's a thanks button to the channel. You can donate if you'd like. If you do donate and you want to request something, I'll do it. You don't have to request anything. That's fine. Much appreciated either way. If you don't want to donate or you can't, hey, times are hard. I get it. Or you don't like me enough, I respect that. You can subscribe if you're watching this and you aren't subscribed. If you are subscribed, you don't have to hit that subscribe button again. It's okay. And give a thumbs up, because giving a thumbs down is mean. And you don't want to be mean. So, hopefully the next video will not be almost an hour. And until then, have a good day, have a good night.